Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Emma Morton, and I'd like to warmly welcome you on behalf of CREST-BD to our 13th talkBD event on managing mental health and the impacts of bipolar disorder, particularly during the additional stress and disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm joined today by a guest speaker, Don Kattler, a peer researcher with CREST-BD who lives well with bipolar disorder. And we are also joined by Victoria Maxwell, who has been with CREST-BD since its inception and who always offers a really lovely, warm and compassionate perspective. This is a strange and special occasion for our team to be marking. Today's webinar is exactly 1 year to the day since we first held one of these talkBD events. We started this series in March 20 as a way to provide some extra support and practical tips for people who were feeling uncertain, feeling additional impacts of stress and anxiety due to COVID-19 and the associated physical distancing measures. In fact, our first event was, I think, called Tips and Tools for Living in Uncertain Times, which had Victoria, myself, and also Professor Erin Mahalik. CREST-BD really wanted to provide an online space for people to hear about ways to adapt their existing wellness strategies or learn something new in a warm and supportive environment. And we've been continuing that for apparently 13 sessions since then, I think covering a lot of really important and valuable topics. Today, we're going to be talking about a part of life that has been markedly changed for most people during COVID, and has always been particularly important for people who live with bipolar disorder, and that is home management and organization. Many people are working from home, going to school from home, and with more people using a space, the more mess and clutter tends to build up. On top of that, being stuck at home means that you are face-to-face with how your home looks almost 24/7. Today's an exception for me, being back at the office for the first time in over a year, to get a stable internet connection, but certainly I've been feeling that impact of having to see the clutter and the dishes and my own chaotic lifestyle habits face to face. We're trying to make our spaces full double duty as home offices, schools, cafes, rec spaces, so the impact of anything being out of place or not in the way that you feel comfortable is even more keenly felt. And there is some research to kind of confirm what we might intuitively feel and know about a cluttered space, that it can impact how we think and feel. There is one neuroscience study which found that a person's visual cortex can be overwhelmed by objects not related to a particular task, making it harder to focus and complete projects efficiently. And clutter can also manage our ability to manage stress. The study found that college students who were asked to complete a stressful task in a cluttered space ate more sugary foods during the task than those who were in a clean space, which I definitely can relate to. A survey has even found that people report sleeping better on clean sheets. So how your home environment looks can really impact your mental and physical health in a range of ways. For people with bipolar disorder, changes to how your home looks can impact your mental health in the ways I've just described, and it can also be a warning sign for potentially risky changes in mood. This is a topic that unfortunately hasn't received that much research attention, so it's really valuable and insightful for us to get the advice of people with lived experience who have felt the impacts of their mood on how their home environment is kept and who have come up with innovative ways to manage that. It's also really great for viewers to share their own tips and tricks in the chat. If you have any questions, please pop them into the Zoom Q&A box. If you're watching on Facebook, you can comment on the stream, or you can submit comments anonymously on the CREST-BD talkBD page, and we will get to them after the main presentation. Before we begin, we'll just do some quick introductions, and then I'll hand the mic over to Don and Victoria to talk more about ways to have a satisfying home environment. So myself first, I'm a postdoctoral researcher from the University of British Columbia, looking at digital health tools and quality of life for people with bipolar disorder. I've been with the CREST-BD team since I was doing my PhD in 2015, and I came over to join the team physically in 2019. I came over with only a few suitcases worth of stuff, so you'd think that my home environment would be pretty manageable. But with the amount of quarantine hobbies I've started, I've ended up with a lot of dice for my Dungeons and Dragons collection. I've got a real kind of dragon hoard of those accumulating. I've got yarn from my crochet projects and all the kind of cute 70s roller skating gear that I'm trying to get into building up. So I'll now pass the mic over to Don to introduce himself. We'd love to hear about where you work, your involvement with CREST-BD, and one thing you do to relax in your downtime.
Thanks, Emma. Just hello to everybody. First, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm speaking from the traditional territory of the Kalgoorlie people, which I guess in layman's terms is I'm in Port Hardy, BC, which is the very northern tip of Vancouver Island. And I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as a teenager and have been living with it. And, you know, I'm on a journey. So what I currently do for work, I've been, the last little while, I've been working with the provincial government as part of the BC Poverty Reduction Initiative. And I'm also the executive director for Mental Health Recovery Partners North Island. So we do a lot of work around supporting people with mental illness and families whose loved ones have suffered from mental illness. And prior to that, I was working for the Health Authority on Vancouver Island and doing frontline work. So I work both on an ACT team and an ICM team. So I have a lot of experience interacting and working with people with mental illness and addictions. And I've taken a lot of my life experiences and adapted that and sort of given that to my work. And in terms of my downtime is really, if you look in my household, you'll see thousands of vinyl records. Yeah, I know Erin and I have had discussions about this, but yeah, my downtime is really about music and vinyl. And it's something that just adds to the clutter of my own household. So.
Thanks, Don. Victoria?
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Victoria. I'm a mental health speaker and a performer, and I've been with CREST for, as Emma said, since its inception. And I live with bipolar disorder, anxiety, and psychosis. And yeah, some of the stuff that I do in my downtime that also it's keeping, I've kept it at bay. I've started sewing a bit. And so I have a sewing machine. And so luckily I have enough room in my laundry room, and my husband built a shelf, and I don't have a lot of projects on the go, or if they are, they're small, like bookmarks and oven mitt covers. So it's not like I have to have like tables of fabric and stuff. So that's a good thing. But what it just struck me when you were talking about the research about focus and clutter and stuff. I have a big box of clutter in one part of my office that I should at least put somewhere else, because I keep seeing it, and the guilt of like going, oh man. And of course, the reaction now is I just want to throw all of it out. But I realize I'll be throwing out things that I actually need. So I'm actually really looking forward to what Dawn has to say in the discussion and the questions and tips that we might share. So thanks.
Thanks, Victoria. Yeah, I think we're all, I'm keen to learn some tips as well today. I always get something out of it. I'm particularly expecting to get something out of today. I should also mention that we have the silent supporters behind the scenes, Caden and Laura, who are helping monitor the chat and make sure the tech runs smoothly. So we'll take about 20 minutes to have Don and Victoria talk about some strategies to keep a safe and comfortable home environment. And then we'll start taking some audience questions. So looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. Over to you,
Do you
Don.
want to start, Victoria? Yeah. Or?
Oh, no, you start with your presentation and I'll just
Okay,
jump
sure.
right in.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I guess I just want to start with, we're talking about a little bit what Emma had touched on, so why this is an important topic. And for me personally, it's more about how it impacts my overall mental health. I know, when I'm depressed, the clutter seems to be more problematic, and it seems to be more difficult to sort of tackle, I guess, on a personal level. It just seems to stay and stay and stay. And it gets to a point where it just becomes overwhelming and self-defeating almost, in terms of just making that depressive episode just even more difficult to get out of. And in terms of just, the strategies around that, for me, it's really just about my recovery plan, and just sticking to that. I've developed a recovery plan, and over the years, what I've found has been really helpful in terms of just sort of, tackling those pieces is just, keeping connections with people. I think it's really important to have that people connection. And I know often when I'm in a depression in that episode, I tend to self-isolate a lot. And, it's been that much more difficult during COVID too, because our connection with people's really been lost in a way, due to that self-isolating and having that small circle of people. And, it's to me, it's really important to have that connection to people. And being able to have the ability within that plan I have is to ask for help. And, asking for that help, I mean, it's always that shame piece when you have that person come over, but you realize you do need the help. You finally you've got to that point where you've asked, and it's just inviting someone into your household, and seeing what's happened, and just feeling that sense of being so overwhelmed that you don't know where to start. And I don't know, Victoria, if you can add anything to that. Or
yeah, I was going to just jump on something that you said earlier about it being a sort of a warning sign, and the aftermath too. So that time where if you've invited someone in to help you sort of clean up whatever's happened. And what I know too is that both in depression, when I let things go, so I have, dishes from weeks and laundry that I haven't folded, or, I mean, even when I'm well, I have trouble folding laundry, but in a more extreme way, and just building of clutter and garbage. But I also realize in mania, I'll be starting projects, I'll be doing, and depending on how severe the mania is, I can be like tearing up paper, I can be writing poetry, have things that I think are good ideas on paper everywhere. And so it really becomes a symbol of my illness. And so bringing people in to see that is a very vulnerable thing. And I think one of the good things is if I can start to see the signs really early, and note what they are in particular. So for me, one of them is not having the motivation to change the sheets on my bed. That's one of the first things. So when I notice that, it's time to do that, and I just go, oh, one more night, and it keeps going, that's usually a sign for depression. And then often I can, do what I need to do to take care of myself with depression. The depression sometimes still comes, but I can manage my my home environment a bit better with like the plan that you were talking about. And then same thing, knowing what those very, very early signs are. And then if I can't actually catch it early enough, or it happens so quickly, then really knowing who my social supports are and who are the people that I really trust, that can come in without judgment, without blame, hopefully with a sense of humor, And because that really goes a long way, and a sense of common humanity too. Because I think even when we're not in the states of depression or mania, we all get to be in a place of messiness or chaos or disorganized or whatever. So being able to really rely on that. So I really echo that connection is really important, because sometimes I can get lost in the objects and the tasks and the to-dos. And the more I get disconnected from people, the more I can get absorbed into my home. And often my home isn't my best friend. So that's sort of what I would say. And I'd love to hear more of the strategies that you were talking about.
Yeah. I just picking up on that piece too, just being in that sort of stage of mania too. It's just, thinking about it while you were talking, just starting all these little things in the house and just not completing them. So they're always at a stage of unfinished. And often find myself doing that too. So you're right in terms of just being able to sort of, pick up on those symptoms of what may be coming, and understanding that through that piece of self-reflection that, I've really sort of had to focus on over the years of, living with bipolar, and sort of that journey piece of, being able to understand those indicators. The other piece too, I think, going on to another strategy is, around routine within your household. In establishing the routine. When I'm healthy, I have that routine in my life of, it goes to it impacts, or it touches a number of other things, but, around sleep hygiene, just all those pieces around routine, getting up at the same time every day, 7 days a week, which is something I do. But I have this routine when I know I'm healthy. It's just, I know I get up at the same time. My day starts with coffee, reading. It's kind of a meditative process, but just also that continuation of that routine in terms of, cleaning, doing the dishes after I eat, making your bed, doing laundry on a set day. Those things during the week, you have those smaller tasks during the day, and then those maybe once a week type tasks. But just continuing with that routine is just really important in terms of just preventing that step where you get to that point where you start to feel a little bit overwhelmed, because the more tasks you start to skip and you fall out of that routine, the more overwhelming you start to become. And I think it's really important from a strategy is sort of, I think, everyone's heard of those SMART goals, but I think even that's too complicated. I think if we keep it just to the, simple and small is what I like to think about, is if you just keep things simple and small, and even if it's just 5 minutes, I think that's really where, I think would benefit a lot of people. I think SMART goals can get too complicated sometimes, and because there's measurements, and I think they can be somewhat self-defeating at times too. So I just like to focus on simple and small, if I can give any advice to anybody.
Yeah, I like to say small is big, and slow is fast, and slow is good. The times that you're talking about with that routine, I was reflecting that, another indicator is that if dishes are piling up for a long period of time. And so if I can manage to stay in this sort of organizational routine, and I think one of the things that I find that can influence my mood and trigger something is that as I have a routine, but let's say, unexpected things of life happen and it impacts it. And then being able to juggle how to still keep that routine with, let's say, a number of new stressors. And I know for me, new stressors can be definitely a trigger for a change into a different mood state. So it's really finding a way of being able to have those new unexpected things and then still making time for creating a framework and that solidity around the routine. And I guess one of the things that I've found is that a friend of mine, a business coach, talks about, slowing down to speed up. And so being able to, even because it feels like the last thing that I want to do when I have so many things to do, or I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, is to slow down and take stock. But it's sometimes what brings me the most relief. And it doesn't mean that I have to, and sometimes the idea of taking stock overwhelms me. But what I find is oftentimes it's just getting it down on paper of all the things that I feel like I need to be doing. And in that pocket of slowing down, doing what you said is just doing one small thing after I've sort of listed all the things that I feel like I need to do, and just do what I know has to be done. So it allows me to prioritize that way. And ideally, then it lifts a little bit of that pressure and a little bit of the pressure to get it all organized all at once.
Yeah, I just what you said, I think just it brought up so much for me, Victoria. And just in terms of just, I don't know, my own personality too, just in the work I do and just everything I do, it's always wanting to do more. And that idea of adding that extra stress, and I don't know if it's just my personality type, probably, but it's just that ability to say no sometimes is just that first step. It's just really difficult for me at times to say no, because I don't know, I'm just very passionate about the work I do, and it's just really difficult. But you're right, it just impacts everything else that's going on in your household when you're bringing in all these additional stressors. And I don't necessarily realize that at the time, because I'm only thinking about those other tasks and not really thinking about how much more time that's going to take it away from what I do at home or what I need to do at home. And, I think moving forward too, it's just, I don't think I think a lot of people, and I'll just speak for myself, but I don't think I'm necessarily bringing that piece of kindness to myself all the time, because I'm putting that pressure on myself. So like you said, taking that time to sort of be slow and accepting that being slow is okay. And like you said, slow is fast sometimes. And, but yeah, I really appreciate that. So. Another thing I'd like to, I guess, when we talk about the things we do in the household, and I think it's something we don't necessarily do all the time, is like reward ourselves. Like, if we accomplish something in our house and we're struggling to do something, and taking that 5 minutes to maybe just clear a table or clear a counter, like enjoy that moment. Like, look at your clean counter and go, wow, my counter's clean. I haven't seen it clean in like days. And I know for me too, I have a dishwasher and my dishes still stack up on my counter. So, the task of putting never mind washing my dishes, but putting my dishes in the dishwasher and seeing a clean counter is I get some enjoyment out of that. But at the same time too, I think, those small tasks and those routines that we do, I think we have to reward ourselves. And I don't know how that looks. I mean, that's going to look different to everyone else. But just for me, is like, going out for coffee. I'm a bit of a coffee snob. So honestly, going out for good coffee is kind of my small reward. But, if I'm buying a record is always a reward, but I don't know if it's a reward or if it's just an addiction at this point in my life. So
yeah. No, I really like that idea of really enjoying that. And I think sometimes it's helpful, like, especially if I guess it's helpful to do it when I'm well, but also if I'm in a depressive stage, when just to be able to sort of reflect on when I do something that, it's been difficult to do, whether it's putting in a load of laundry or folding something or watering the plants or repotting a plant that's needed to be done, to check in with myself and see how I feel. And if I'm depressed, oftentimes my self-talk won't give me that room to feel good about it. So just even noticing that and having some compassion around that, which sometimes kickstarts a little self-acceptance. But then when I'm well, or just in the beginning stages of depression, really being able to sort of, like you said, savor, how does my body feel? How does my mind feel? Because I feel like that fuels and feeds the next positive step. And so that's sort of a reward in itself. And then it can create a habit. Because I feel like when we create those habits, they're much harder to be derailed when we're not well. And so the more that we create a habit with the reinforcement of joy and reward, I've noticed that myself, like when I am able to fold the laundry, I'm using laundry just because that's sometimes difficult for me to do, but it feels good when I do it. And having a clean counter or dust, like, or sweeping, right? When I see all the fur from my dog and I can put it in a garbage can, I go, oh my God, look at how, because I'm very like immediate gratification kind of thing, right? And one of the other things too is doing it with other people. So like taking a half an hour, if you live with somebody, to say, you clean the bathroom, I'll clean the kitchen sink or whatever. Usually the bathroom is the one that gets the most difficult time. Like no one really wants to clean a toilet or the bathtub. I don't know, maybe other people do, but I don't. And so I find that kind of teamwork can really make it easier to do and more fun in a way.
Yeah, when you're talking about routine, and I've brought it up too, it's just during COVID, routines have been so disrupted. And I just know from my own mental health, being at home has been a struggle. And just the ability to keep your home the way you want it has been even more of a struggle. And it's, I think, that much more challenging. Like part of my reward system when I was talking about rewarding yourself has been disrupted too by COVID. I can't go out and just do the things I would normally do as part of my routine. So just reestablishing new routines has been tough during COVID. And it's kind of just a new life. And I think the focus on the home has sort of taken on even more of an important piece to people's sort of overall mental and physical health too. And so, like you said, I mean, it would be great. I don't live with somebody else, but it would be great to share a task. But one of the other things too is even having what I call sort of accountability buddies or whatever, so that at the same time you could be sort of check in or whatever. I even have like a thing called Focus Mate, where you have a partner, and while you're doing another task, and it can be cleaning, it could be sorting things out, and so that you're just sort of checking in and you get sort of motivation and encouragement that way. So that can be a really good thing too. Yeah, I actually had a discussion this morning with somebody about this topic exactly. I was talking about prior to coming on to the webinar, and just saying, I've looked at my floor for like weeks and weeks and keep telling myself I need to vacuum, but have I vacuumed my floor yet? No. And no. I keep stepping on popcorn kernels that have been there for weeks. And I'm not at a stage yet where it's, it's not to the point where I'm so depressed that it's, really bothering me, but just those little things. I mean, the motivation to spend 5 minutes to vacuum is, I'm not sure what's preventing me from doing that, but.
And it's interesting. I think COVID has something to do with it in terms of that we have had to remain in our homes. And so our whole living space is our workspace, home space, recreational space is more or less in our home. And I was listening to CBC Radio, it's our sort of Canada's radio station. And one of the announcers was talking about, you know, how she's noticed how she keeps lowering the bar. And she doesn't have a bipolar disorder, but each time she says lowering the bar more and more in terms of cleanliness, clutter, and all that kind of stuff. And I think part of it is because, you know, there's a fatigue around it of just saying, I'm that kind of surrender when you sort of go, I'm here and I don't care about this place anymore, but being able to actually find the joy that you were talking about of those little moments of cleanliness or organizing something and finding out what specifically gives you joy around, like what's important, what's cleanliness, because it's so unique to everybody. Having clean vacuum floors may not be important, but having a really nice mirror to look into when you're brushing your teeth could be more important. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both for sharing both your experiences of how this is important to you throughout your lives, and also the kinds of things that you do. It sounds like the really core takeaways are when you have a habit, a weekly routine that both helps kind of keep on top of things, but also gives you a warning sign for when you deviate from that routine, when things start to not get done that would normally be done at a particular time, that can help you get motivated to act, to kind of prevent things from spiraling out of control. And also that, you know, perhaps we use the stick a little bit too much with ourselves in terms of chastising ourselves for not being on top of things, where it really sounds like the helpful approach is to use the carrot, you know, whether it's a tangible reward like a coffee or a record, or particularly now when those things might not be easy to access, like Victoria says, trying to find the joy in those little moments, whether it's putting on music or a podcast or checking in with others. Really great stuff. So what I'll do now is start to move into some of the questions that we've received from viewers. Our first question says, thanks for doing this. When I get manic, I start remodeling rooms in my house. It costs a lot of money and creates issues with my husband, especially when I don't finish the project and then we have a bunch of crap laying around. How can I stop it? Because when I get manic, I can't be talked out of anything.
Do you want to put your 2 cents in, Dawn, and I can add on, or?
I'll let you start.
Okay. No, for sure. That's fine. I think the first thing that I would say is sort of some of what we've already been talking about is knowing like when the really, really early signs are happening before projects get rolling. And when you're well, have a contingency plan about what you agree to. Because it says, I think there's one part, so that, because I know oftentimes when people are manic, it's really difficult for, you know, people to be persuaded one way or the other. And so for me, it's having a plan of saying, so if I have these signs, then someone close to me can remind me of our contingency plan, which could be taking away tools or taking away access to cash. Or another one literally could be using that creative energy and having a plan to have one area in the home and have a buddy that can keep sort of supporting you in a place so that you can. So maybe it's your husband saying, okay, so this is the project in your home that you can work on, but limit it to that. And then if mania really spirals out of control so that there are so many projects going on, to me, that's when it's a crisis and you need to get to your doctor or your hospital, because then it's something about, stabilizing your mood and making sure that you're not going to be spiraling into an escalated mania. Thoughts, Don?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I mean, just thinking about the question, like home renovations they don't tend to be something you do sort of ad hoc at a spur of a moment. Being in a manic phase, possibly, I would guess that would be something that would be done, but maybe just if it's a recurrent event. From the question, it sounds like this is something that happens often. So maybe just doing maybe a long-term plan in terms of how and the order you're going to tackle home renovations, and maybe set out a written plan that you both discussed ahead of time prior to an episode happening. So at least you have something that you've discussed prior to, and it might be a little bit more, it may be easier to discuss it once you're in an episode that you can refer back to and maybe reflect on. I mean, I don't know, it's hard for me to be in this situation personally. Maybe that's why I'm having a little bit more difficult time answering this question. But to me, that would be something. Maybe I'm more of a planner from my business background. I'm not sure, but to me, would be something I would do in terms of just allocating budgets and doing plans around home renovations. And almost like having an envelope of money saying, this is how much you're spending on this right now, we can't go over.
But my sense is that it's about sort of that when she gets manic, she starts home renovation, and it's not that there's not any plan at all to have them. And so I think one of the other things is that knowing that that's a type of activity that happens, I think you had mentioned it earlier before we started this, about sort of some compassion and acceptance, and reframing it that this is energy that you're wanting to use and channeling it in a creative way. It's just an example of it that just sort of it gets channeled into something that's maybe not as productive as it can be, but that's the nature of bipolar disorder, and understanding that, so the shame and the sort of self-judgment can dissipate a bit.
Thank you, guys. Some really useful tips about both planning ahead and then compassionately making room for that experience if it does come up again. Next question is from somebody who's feeling the opposite end of the pole, the impacts of depression. I can't get motivated, and I feel like my home will never get clean, so there's no point. I really hate living in this mess, and I've been depressed for so long. So what advice would you give to somebody who's been in that situation about getting back on track?
Yeah, I mean, I've been there. I've been in that place, so I can relate. And I think maybe we touched on this a little bit while we were talking, but that ability to reach out to someone, I think that people connection is really, really important. And just, and not being afraid or ashamed of your household. It's, we all have to be, I think everyone with bipolar disorder is brave, and just everyone's experience is different, but having people you can reach out to is so important. And people that are in your life that are going to bring that compassion, that empathy, and not bring judgment with anything about you or your illness. And, just those small steps, like I had mentioned, like 5 minutes, just start with just making your bed. Everybody goes to bed and gets out of bed. And I think even if you're not making your bed really properly, if you just fold your sheets or comforter and put your pillows in the place they're supposed to be without really properly making your bed. But I mean, that's a start. And then just, I think going from there, I think, you know, it's just, I think, as Victoria said, like slow and is fast, but I mean, slow and small and simple, I think is just something that we can all accomplish. I think even in the deepest depression, I know it seems difficult when you're in that place, but it's amazing how doing that one small, simple thing can make a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, I can't add too much, but to me, it's those micro goals. So this wouldn't be, I mean, it literally can be about putting one bowl away, or that one box of cereal that is on the counter and folding the top of it and putting it on the shelf. Because I think what is important is that the essential need to create momentum, because if you don't create momentum, I don't know about you, but then it just is stasis and inertia, and it can get worse and worse. And this is where I feel like I'm not to blame for my illness, but I'm responsible for my health. And that doesn't mean that I have to do everything on my own. This means that I could have someone come in and help me, or I could phone someone. It's like a lifeline and say, can you just like say something good about me while I put my bowl in the dishwasher or something? And I hate the fact that it takes so much energy and effort to do, because I've been there just recently where I'm in bed and I don't even want to get up, and I don't want to put my shoes on. I don't want to get dressed. And it's one thing is like, okay, just one leg over the bed, the next leg over the bed. And I really like what you said about it doesn't have to be a good job. I really believe in good enough is good enough, or mediocre is good enough, or really bad is good enough.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like beyond obviously being compassionate to yourself, it's important to surround yourself with people that you can trust to be compassionate to you when you're feeling that way, who you won't bring up feelings of shame if you want to invite to your place. But also, obviously, you know, it's when you think about how do I get my home clean, that's such a big, overwhelming task. But if you break it down to today, I'm going to clean out this kitchen drawer or put the dishes away, it's manageable, small steps. Okay, our next question is a particular challenge that comes from being at home with COVID. I've been struggling with routine and cleanliness because I'm living with my partner and 2 roommates in an apartment. We all have different schedules and different levels of cleanliness. Any tips for keeping with my own routine and not being overwhelmed by other people's messes?
Go for it, Dawn.
As someone who does not live with roommates, wow. You know,
can you repeat the question again? Is it about sort of having different levels of cleanliness between people in the house?
Sure, yeah. So I think it's basically getting at a lot of the advice we've been sharing today has been about, you know, getting your own routine established and your own levels of cleanliness. But what if you're living with other people who might have different routines and different standards of cleanliness? How might you either have a productive conversation about that, or cope with the fact that your home environment may not look like what you want due to factors outside of your control?
Yeah. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Dawn.
No, that's okay. I'm okay with that. You know, I think you can't be responsible for everyone else's mess. I mean, that would be my response, would be, you know, I mean, you can't take on other people's stuff. And that's so true with many other aspects of life. And, you know, in terms of cleanliness, do what you need to do about your own cleanliness. If you have that ability to do that, I think that acceptance piece is important. Like, accept that that's what you can do. You know, if as a person with bipolar, it's asking a lot to take on other people's responsibilities, and just, you know, understand that, you know, like the person's already mentioned, everyone has a different what they consider clean and not to be clean, and what they consider to be tidy and not tidy. And I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt to have that conversation in terms of expectations, maybe within the household, and how we live together.
I think that's really, because I really think that's important, that because someone else's organization and clutter can affect my own mental health. And so if mine is affecting theirs, but particularly if theirs is affecting mine. So it's a difficult conversation to have, because it's about setting boundaries. With roommates, I think sometimes, ironically, maybe it's not easier, but being able to have some house guidelines. And some people love to have those conversations and love to have those lists and, you know, have an agreement and have it set in stone. And other people are like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. So I think it's difficult for people with or without bipolar disorder. But having those conversations about being able to say, this is what helps me stay well. What supports you? What do you like? And where can we find a compromise? And knowing that it's probably going to be a compromise, and then being able to control what you have control of in your sphere.
Right. And, you know, I think in a roommate situation too, you often have separate bedrooms too. So it's important too, is, you know, having that sanctuary you can go back to, where you have full control over a space, and then having those other discussions around the common household areas.
Thanks, guys. We have a question from somebody who's wondering how to move past that initial feeling of guilt if you're not sure who the kind of compassionate people in your circle might be. This person asks, do you have any tips about dealing with the shame? I live alone and I don't invite people who are in my bubble over because I am ashamed of my mess.
Wow. I can understand how it's both difficult and how the shame can build. Some of the practical things that I've done is doing mindfulness meditation, and really creating a sense of room for all of who I am. And this may sound like it's not a short-term answer. I mean, it's not a quick fix, but finding things online so that I'm guided. And I think that's one of the things too, is that I'm not sure if this person has access, you know, how much access they have to the internet or how stable it is. But I've also often found that I can find connection with YouTube videos, support groups online, and remain anonymous. And that can often lift the shame, because connection really reduces shame. So I can't always fix it if I'm in my own head. Mindfulness can sometimes do that. There's a course called Mindfulness Daily that's free with Tara Bracht and Jack Cornfield. That's really simple. It's 15 minutes. It's like 10 minutes of instruction and 5 minutes of practice. And it really is really helpful. And those are the two things, is looking for connection online through groups to help you with that shame, and then mindfulness. I don't know what you would say, Don.
Yeah, I mean, Emma, the question was about having someone from your circle come over? Was that?
Yeah, so this person has people, they have a bubble, they live alone, but they feel uncomfortable asking people into their space because they feel ashamed about the mess, and they're looking ways to cope with that feeling.
Sorry, I might have not heard that question properly, but
No. You know, again, you know, it's interesting that question's come up, because I was talking to someone this morning, and actually kind of almost talked about that, you know, the cleanliness of the house and not wanting to have people visit, and because of that shame piece. And then, you know, having someone in your circle or really close to you say, well, you know, I'm not coming to visit your house. I'm coming to visit you. You know, you're the person I want to see, and that's who I'm visiting. I'm not visiting your house. I'm not visiting your mess. So maybe just that compassion piece to yourself, like, you know, and understand why that person wants to come and visit. They're coming to see you. They're not coming to see your mess. They're not coming to see your physical space or your house. They're coming because of that connection with you and that relationship they have with you.
That's awesome, Dawn. I think that's really, and if it is about helping to clean up, it's about helping you, not judging the mess.
Yeah, Victoria, I think your advice was really useful as well, because mindfulness, as we know, can help people make space for those difficult and uncomfortable feelings. And I think what Dawn's said here is really great, putting yourself in the perspective of a friend who might be visiting. I don't think any of us would carry that sense of judgment if we were visiting a friend in that kind of situation. Because of the time, I'll move into our last question, and this will be just really short tips so that we can move into resources. This person says, I'm moving to another small apartment and have a chance to start afresh. Any important bipolar layout decisions and home tips that the panelists suggest before I move? So what would be one takeaway tip that you might use in terms of organization that you could give to this person before they move to a new place?
What I always do is downsize every time I move. So as you're packing, be mindful of what you're packing. If it is something, if it's a piece of clothing you haven't worn for over a year, maybe it's time to donate that piece of clothing. Or, I mean, for me, downsizing books is often a thing. But just, you know, if you have that opportunity to start fresh, be mindful when you're packing. I think is just really something I do, because it's so much easier when you move into that old space if you've taken that time prior to sort of declutter and downsize prior to going into the new space.
That's great. I don't know if I have anything else. That was sort of the thing that I was going to say is sort of streamline as you're packing, so that when you go into your new place, it's easier and you have less things. And if you are going into a smaller place, one of the things I would suggest is, you know, having a small place in your home that is yours to put whatever you want and however you want, and that it can be messy. And it can be just a shelf, it can be a closet, it can be anything. And somehow it's like, it's okay to have that junk drawer, and that it never needs to be cleaned out. It's not a total layout question, but it's sort of like a perspective question, I think.
Thank you so much. I think those are two really useful tips. It's great to have that opportunity to be really thoughtful and considerate about what you take with you. And I really like Victoria's suggestion of, when you move in, find that one place where things are going to be okay to be a little bit out of order, because having moved a couple of times in the last few years, I can say that that initial process of finding where everything goes is overwhelming. So if you can say this is the forget about it drawer, it's really good to have. Thank you to both Victoria and Dawn for sharing your time and your expertise on this topic. To wrap up today's webinar, I'm going to run through some resources that CrossBD offers and flag some of our upcoming events. Caden and Laura have put together a document that will be shared in the chat that links to everything I'm going to quickly mention here. And this will be also available after the presentation in the Facebook stream and YouTube descriptions if you're not watching via Zoom. So one thing we wanted to share is there are many kind of life hack websites that give tips. Some of these more practical ones, like we just touched on at the end there, about how to organize your home and streamline daily chores. But it can be tough to find one that offers something a bit more reasonable rather than those weird clickbaity tips like how to clean your sink with tomato sauce I saw on YouTube. despite the kind of colourful name of this one, the CREST-BD team really liked the kind of compassionate tone that it takes. It recognizes that, you know, we're not all Marie Kondo. It's sometimes nice to have a website which offers realistic, practical tips about organization. So we've dropped the link in the chat there for you. Our Bipolar Wellness Center also has great tips and resources for improving your quality of life across a range of areas, including home. We have a video starring our very own Victoria Maxwell, kind of illustrating some of these concepts that we talked about today, about how low mood can interfere with taking care of your environment and ways to get back on track. We also have the quality of life tool, which allows you to measure how you're doing across a range of areas. This can be really useful for checking in to see where you're doing well and where you might need some extra support. And it can also help you test out the impact of any strategies on your well-being. We also have our academic CREST-BD website, which is where you can stay in the loop about research projects, and you can sign up to our newsletter, CREST Currents, to hear about upcoming events, studies, or research participation opportunities. We are really excited to invite you to our World Bipolar Day Ask Me Anything on Reddit. So if we didn't get to your questions today, this might be an opportunity to ask more. This will be running for 48 hours starting from 10 a.m. PST on March 30th. We have over 28 panelists with lived experience from academic or clinical backgrounds, and we'll be taking your questions. Last year, we answered over 300 questions from people. It was one of the biggest bipolar specific events on the internet, and this year we're hoping to make it even bigger. For information about how to participate, check out the document that we shared or visit our CREST-BD website. Our next talkBD event will be on men's mental health on May 10th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Dr. John Ogrodnichuk, founder of Heads Up Guys, an online resource that helps men deal with depression. In the meantime, our previous talkBD events can be watched online at our website, on our Facebook page, and on our YouTube channel. We're always keen to hear your feedback about these events and learn how we can improve. So we have a survey link on the talkBD website. We would really appreciate if you can complete the survey and also help us identify what topics are most important to people right now so we can think about what to cover next. We'd like to take a moment to thank our funders and partners, everyone who helps make these events possible. And if you'd like to stay up to date with our work or the work of our partner organizations, you can follow us on our social media platforms. Thank you so much to everyone who attended and shared your questions or your tips. And thank you once again to Victoria and Don for your time today. Until next time, stay healthy and well. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Don. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Victoria. Bye, Emma.